Okay, I'll go through the other two examples. The second example concerns recipes. Another sort of iconic aspect of life, which we might decide to study, an iconic human activity, is cooking. And people have already shown great interest in exchanging recipes when they have the opportunity to, and trying out new foods. So I was imagining to myself, if I wanted to make a lesson about recipes, if I wanted a guided learning experience, I might have some students and I might ask them to go home and choose their favorite meal and prepare a recipe for creating that meal. And this would again be an excellent opportunity to have a learning experience, but it's also one which is well suited for use with the laptop. I can do wonderful things in preparation of a recipe which is easy to follow, in the recording of what ingredients went into the recipe, in the comparison of several recipes and review, and in the collaborative development of this knowledge by me writing a recipe and sharing it with a friend like Tomeo and saying, Tomeo, go cook my recipe and tell me what you think of it, or suggest some ingredients that you would include in it, and send that information back to me so that I get a better recipe out of it. A puzzle for me is, I can say that, I can just explain that to you here, but I don't have any good ideas about how to explain that in software, per se. I don't really know how to say, the things that I have thought of to do with the recipe consist of writing it down here, which is a primitive activity that we understand the laptop's good at, writing, and recording the ingredients that go into it, and sharing it with an individual of your choice, and having them modify or comment on the result, and receiving the result of that interaction back for my own evaluation. That seems like an archetypal pattern of the way that many people, including myself, imagine the laptops being used, but I can't find any software structures that support that usage on the laptop, or that are tailored to it. I can think of hacks that I could do to pull them together, but it doesn't seem like that kind of use case has been considered so far in the software that I find available. And the final example that I want to share pertains to physics jams. Physics jam is a kind of complicated beast. It happens over a couple of days. It brings together people who don't know each other ahead of time, necessarily. It involves a complicated activity, software development. And it yields results which are valuable. It yields new activities. So this is something that I'd really like to encourage. But I don't know how to explain, again, with what I consider a quality presentation, what a physics jam is and how to run one through the laptop. Yet I think that this is this form of compound activity, this sort of template into which more primitive activities are filled, arranged, participated in, and results are collected from them, ought to be an essential aspect of the kind of learning experience that we offer. It's true that, and the fundamental aspect of that is it's a learning experience with multiple participants that can be laid out ahead of time and distributed to a large collection of people. Some of them, each of them will benefit to it from a different degree, but that it's mass reproducible is I think the aspect of it that appeals to me. So my third question is how do I encode physics jams into the laptop? How do I, as someone who understands how to run a physics jam, imagining that I'm Brian Jordan, translate my experience into bits that can be shipped around and that you find compelling, that you can take up even though you never met me, and you have a weekend, you have a friend who knows a little bit about programming in Pippi. We just got the physics library merged into that, so it's even easier. And we can sit down and we can say, gee, I want to take a billiard, I want to make a billiards game, or I want to study gravitation by changing the physics engine that's used from a rigid body engine to an n-body engine so that I can watch particles fly around according to interesting forces, be they gravitational. How do you do these things with sugar?
But how is this different to a project? Or how much different is to the concept of a project that involves different activities, products?
They might be equally expressive. I might be able to simulate one with the other. I'd be fine with that.
So we have already people who have thought how to have projects as a primitive in Sugar. So
Yeah. I'd like us to talk in some more detail about the consequences and requirements of doing that, because I think it's really central to providing the educational experience I imagine us providing.
have you seen Amadis? This
Amavis?
Amadis?
Amadis?
Is this web app made in the lake in Porto Alegre? Okay, so yeah.
Go, can you show me?
Explain.
We have a projector? Yeah.
I haven't
I'm
seen
hold
it.
on. I don't need to stand up.
I haven't seen it.
I've seen it. I've seen it out of,
Can I build the experiences that I want to
No,
build?
I mean, it's a little too detailed, and it's also kind of a hot topic with a lot of context. But
Adam, does anyone dispute that we need you're saying projects, right? Sorry, I have another meeting this time. All right, so I'll do as best I can. You're saying projects, right?
I'm saying compound educational experiences. If projects is the word for those that makes the most sense to you, then I'm totally cool with
Right.
that.
So, anybody?
does anyone doubt that or anything?
So what do you need to get started, first of all? What do you need to get started with the Sugar Act? Look at it from someone who's a newbie who's never done it before. What do you need to get started? Let's say you've learned about this, you're interested, you know a handful of people who may or may not have some rudimentary programming skills. So take yourself through the process of how someone would even get started writing a Sugar Act.
Sure. Well, so I want to go back a step further than that and ask whether it's really necessary to write any activities like this. And the reason why, so as a remark, part of what stimulated me to think about this conversation that I had with Brian Berry a few weeks ago pertaining to content creation tools. And one of the things that, I used to be a video game player, and one of the things
Used
that was,
to be.
Yeah.
Used to be.
Well, you see, I went to college and I started working for OLPC.
Not a lot of time.
Yeah. Anyway, while I was playing those games, one thing that was eminently clear was that games that came with awesome content creation tools were better games than those that didn't. So StarCraft was an awesome game because it had a map editor.
Yeah.
Okay, that was free, that was installed on every CD, that we, the 12, 14-year-old, learned to program in with the triggered events.
Yeah.
Okay, that you deploy. Similar story exists for the mod community for Half-Life. I'm sure there are some people who've been seriously motivated by the availability of these
Yes,
kinds
and
of
exist
creation
all the
tools.
way back to level editors for
Sure.
Apple II games, which is what I did.
Yeah, so how many, do we have that stuff or not? Where is it coming from? The fundamental aspect about those level editors, okay, and these mod tools, is that they let you piece together stock content into a generic structure, be it a level with terrain tiles and units stuck down on it, or in the case of a web page, a chunk of text with images and links embedded into it, or in the case of TamTam SynthLab, new voices that can be put into context. So,
I'd like to, I think that's a great idea. I think absolutely editing content, all that stuff is great. But I do want to sort of raise the level of awareness in this room about learning styles. And there's people have different learning styles. And that the developers in this room all share a learning style. The fact that you all love to modify your level editors. That is not actually shared with anywhere near 100% of the population you're programming for. So not that you shouldn't create those tools that you enjoy, but do keep in mind the learning styles. The problem you're trying to solve is certainly a problem that exists elsewhere in education. And I can give you 3 examples of people who've tried to solve it, if you think that's going to be helpful. I'm not saying that any of these are the solution you'd need. If you go to, the simplest one, you see all over. I posted at one point what a lesson plan is on the web. So you go to like PBS, right? They have tons of money. They spend money on this stuff. What is their idea of how you solve the recipe problem when their equivalent is using a video? You give instructions for the teacher. First you watch this segment, then you have your students do this. Then